During the Buccaneers preseason game on August 23rd, Shilo Sanders lost his temper and punched Zach Davidson.
The tight end, Zach Davidson.
Deion Sanders, his father, expressed his displeasure.
Congratulations. What was your reaction to the last play of the game?
You don't want to know. I don't use profanity, but I thought.
Shilo may never play in the NFL again as a result of that one error. Let's dissect it. The blow that made all the difference. In what many saw as a standard exhibition game, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers and Buffalo Bills faced off on August 23, 2025. When Shilo Sanders, 25, took the field, he was carrying more than just his gear. He is the son of NFL icon and current Colorado head coach Deion "Primetime" Sanders. He carried the scrutiny that comes with having one of the most well-known names in football. The expectations of a father who had triumphed in 2 professional sports, and the fervent desire of an undrafted free agent attempting to establish his place in the most competitive football league in the world. After following his father's coaching career and transferring through several collegiate programs, from South Carolina to Jackson State to Colorado, Shilo had amassed respectable stats: 52 games, 148 tackles, 6 interceptions, and 7 forced fumbles. However, in April 2025, he was not selected despite this performance. For someone who had grown up thinking he was destined for NFL glory, this reality check was extremely painful. On April 26, 2025, the Buccaneers signed him as an undrafted free agent, giving him a lifeline. Nothing more, nothing less. It was a chance. Shilo understood that he would need to be exceptional, simply to be average in a league where undrafted players face overwhelming odds and compete against draft picks who enter with guaranteed cash and organizational investment. There had been both excitement and disappointment over the preseason. His stats for the first 3 games were not very impressive. 4 solo tackles in a small number of snaps. He only managed 12 defensive snaps in the championship game versus Buffalo, which was a pitiful amount of time to display the abilities that had previously made him a success at the collegiate level. Every play has significance. Each picture served as an audition. Every error could spell the end of your career. The Bucs had a 100-point advantage going into the second quarter. At this point, Shilo was pitted against Zach Davidson of Buffalo, a massive 6'7", 251-pound tight end who had been vying for a spot on the NFL squad. For days to come, the sports media would study, discuss, and argue what transpired next. The play itself appeared to be a running play with Davidson giving Shilo a typical blocking assignment. However, Davidson persisted in his forceful blocking as the whistle sounded to terminate the play, seemingly driving Shilo to the ground in what many would subsequently refer to as a dirty maneuver or cunning hit. Everything boiled over in a moment, including the late collision, the persistent aggression following the whistle, and the apparent contempt. Shilo responded quickly and forcefully. He punched Davidson with a right hook, which made contact with his helmet. The sound of a face mask and knuckles colliding reverberates through the muggy Florida air. It was a moment of unadulterated instinct, when emotion triumphed over reason, and when a young man's frustration erupted into a single career-changing move.
It's the tight end, Zach Davidson. And a swing, Sanders. Right there. And a shove back.
That's not going to be good.
For either Sanders.
The official's reaction was quick and unforgiving. Shilo was removed from the game after receiving a warning for being too rough. That effectively ended his NFL debut season. The consequences of what had just happened started to weigh on him as he left the field. This was no longer college football. Family names did not shield people from repercussions or offer second chances in this setting. The coaching staff of Tampa Bay responded quickly and clearly. In his post-game evaluation, head coach Todd Bowles, a tough veteran who had witnessed every type of player error imaginable in his coaching tenure, wasn't holding back.
It is Shilo Sanders after that ejection. You know you can't throw punches in this league. I mean, that's inexcusable. They're going to get you every time. Got to grow from that.
Bowles' condemnation was crystal clear.
He was very unequivocal in his disapproval. Punches are not allowed in this league. It is unacceptable. It must teach him something. The finality of the words was heavy, the tone of a coach who had already made up his mind regarding a player's future with his organization. However, the incident's background may have hurt the most. According to later reports, Shilo felt instantly guilty in the locker room after being ejected, realizing right away that he might have wasted the chance he had spent his entire life pursuing. According to team insiders, during his brief stay with the Bucs, the team had generally had a good opinion of him and valued his aggression and special teams potential. The irony was evident. The same energy and tenacity that had made Shilo a desirable prospect and garnered him recognition for outperforming rival tight ends in one-on-one drills earlier in training camp had now turned into his own downfall. The boundary between respectable behavior and competitive fire in professional football is extremely thin, and Shilo had crossed it at the worst time. Video of the punch became viral almost instantly on social media, spreading like wildfire across many platforms. The responses were as passionate as they were divisive. Some defended Shilo, saying that Davidson had thrown a cunning strike first and that, albeit being incorrect, his reaction was reasonable in light of the provocation. Some fans were less understanding. One even called the swing diabolical. I'm sorry Shilo had to go through that, but the dude deserved it. Media sites re-examined a 2015 high school incident in which Shilo reportedly punched a security officer, resulting in an $11.89 million judgment that prompted his bankruptcy declaration. The event also brought Shilo's background under further investigation. Critics started illustrating a pattern of conduct, while supporters argued that juvenile mistakes shouldn't define a person's entire character. The punch had been thrown. The repercussions were going to materialize, and the hardest test of the Sanders family's relationship was only getting started. What was the father's reaction? Support or silence? The sports community held its breath in anticipation for the reaction from one of football's most outspoken and protective fathers following Shilo Sanders' dismissal from what would be his final NFL game. Primetime with Deion Sanders had never been afraid to speak up for his kids, give advice, or voice his thoughts to anyone nearby. His press appearances were quotable, his social media presence was renowned, and his unflinching and unrelenting commitment to his son's career was evident. Deion's response to his son's career-threatening error, however, was far different from what most had anticipated. He did not angrily defend Shilo's behavior, give a detailed account of the situation, or denounce the referees or the other player. What emerged instead was something immensely more illuminating, far more measured, and far more mysterious regarding the intricate connection between a coach's wisdom and a father's love. Deion shared a verse from the Bible on X, formerly Twitter, less than 24 hours after Shilo was expelled. "My adversaries have attacked me since I was a young child, but they have never been able to defeat me." Psalm 129:2. The post was succinct, mysterious, and subject to several interpretations. His oldest son, Deion Sanders Jr., published it first, and the Colorado head coach later reposted it, forming a multi-layered message that appeared to emphasize family unity in the face of adversity. The timing of this post was noteworthy for several reasons. In addition to Shilo's ejection and potential career repercussions, his younger brother, Shedeur, had also had a rough preseason finale with the Cleveland Browns, finishing just 3 of 6 passes for 14 yards and receiving 5 sacks. The Sanders sons had a terrible weekend, and their father's response appeared to be more intended to offer consolation on a spiritual level than to offer tactical insight. Many people had anticipated a man who had established his name on confidence, theatrics, and never giving up a fight to adopt this cautious approach. Deion had been Shilo and Shedeur's loudest ally, their strongest defender, and their most conspicuous spokesperson during their time in college. In addition to questioning decisions about playing time and challenging coaches, he had made it clear that anyone who had a problem with his sons would have to deal with him first. However, the NFL represented a whole nother domain with different power dynamics, laws, and repercussions. This was not collegiate football, where Deion had considerable influence due to his coaching position and reputation. Even the offspring of legends had to earn their position through skill and character, rather than name recognition, in this ultimate meritocracy, where performance was more important than lineage. Around the same time, Deion provided additional details about his perspective on his son's career changes in a different Bleacher Report interview. "My agreement with my children is that they must give it their all, but they are not required to be the best. They have always been extremely mature and considerate of the situations and challenges they face. I really can't wait to watch them triumph over all of the challenges and flourish." These remarks showed a father who recognized that his kid would face obstacles in his career that even his support and guidance couldn't overcome.
So you know why? Because today and tomorrow, everybody will be cutting players, and a lot of the veteran players. So the teams out here won't claim him off waivers because they know a rush of veteran players and they are coming, and they have to save those spots to see if they can get one of those guys that can help them win right now. That's why Tampa releasing Shilo this early gets him lost in the mix so they can have an opportunity to bring him back on their practice squad because he's the best kind of practice squad player. Remember, they got to tell him to slow down and stop. Don't hit people. Don't do that. Don't go too hard.
Punch surfaced during the incident's massive media coverage. Rather, it appeared that his answer was intended to offer emotional support while letting the professional repercussions play out organically. Deion's approach to his son's prior difficulties set the precedent for this pattern of encouraging rather than critical reactions. Deion was observed comforting Shilo instead of reprimanding him when he was disqualified for targeting during a 2023 college game, exhibiting the type of parental support that puts emotional health ahead of immediate accountability. The strategy proposed a father who recognized that his boys would already be subjected to enough criticism from other sources without having to add to it from members of their own family. Deion's cautious approach did not, however, receive overwhelmingly positive feedback. His son's troubles in the NFL, according to critics, were partly caused by the very safety and assistance he had given them during their careers. Deion's high-profile persona was criticized by some social media users for putting additional strain and attention on his kids, implying that his fame had become more of a liability than a benefit for their career advancement. When former NFL wide receiver Antonio Brown, who was well known for his contentious social media persona and previous conflicts with other NFL players, chose to rekindle his long-standing animosities with the Sanders family, the criticism grew more intense. "Holly Sanders is going to end up getting cut out of the league," Brown wrote on social media, using Shilo's release as justification for a larger assault on the family's chances of playing in the NFL. Given that Shadora and Shilo were both dealing with serious difficulties in their individual circumstances, the remark seemed especially pertinent. Deion responded to Brown's provocation in a typically courteous manner, sending good wishes instead of getting into the kind of public bickering that had characterized some of their earlier exchanges. This restraint showed how Deion's approach to dealing with criticism of his family had changed over time, putting dignity before drama in a way that appeared to recognize the many stakes involved in playing professional football. Deion's statement received a varied but mostly polite response from the larger NFL community. Hall of Fame tight end Shannon Sharpe, who co-hosts the well-liked Night podcast, complimented Deion's support of parenting in the face of criticism and read the Bible text as a message of family perseverance. Fellow podcaster Chad Ochocinco Johnson agreed, describing the verse as inspirational rather than a call to action, and pointing out that it was consistent with Deion's practice of openly supporting his boys. The main focus of media analysis of Deion's reaction was on the insights it provided into his development as a public figure and a father. The father who had previously been renowned for his extravagant parties, audacious prophecies, and readiness to discuss any criticism with anyone was now acting more calmly when it came to his kids' career difficulties. It implied an understanding that his son's NFL endeavors would necessitate a different kind of assistance than what their collegiate accomplishments had required. Deion's response could perhaps be better understood in light of the timing of the occurrences. Less than 24 hours after the punch on August 24, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers formally waived Shilo before making their final roster cuts. Football fans were shocked by how quickly this decision was made, with numerous commentators pointing out that although the punch sped up the decision, it wasn't the only factor in his release. According to team sources, Shilo was already low on the depth chart and his future on the roster was in doubt due to his lackluster preseason play. The situation became even more complicated after this discovery. Shilo's fate had undoubtedly been sealed by the punch, but it seemed that his NFL future had already been seriously questioned for football-only reasons.
This fact probably confirmed to Deion the wisdom of his cautious reaction. Blaming his son for a brief instance of poor decision-making won't address the underlying performance problems that initially threatened his roster status. There was a clear difference between Deion's present strategy and how he had previously handled his son's difficulties in college. He had been far more outspoken in defending their achievements, challenging coaching choices, and stating unequivocally that he intended his kids to be regarded as the outstanding athletes he thought they were while they were at Jackson State and then Colorado. The distinction in his NFL-era statement implied an understanding that professional football is governed by distinct rules with distinct standards and repercussions for players and their families. Lessons learned, legacy, aftermath, and plans. Like stones thrown into still water, Shilo Sanders' expulsion and subsequent release sent shockwaves through the NFL. Every wave unveils fresh nuances regarding professional expectations, family traditions, and the brutal realities of the most competitive sports league in America. The Sanders family was at the heart of a larger discussion around privilege, pressure, and the cost of having a well-known name in professional sports as August 26th approached, the last day for clubs to reduce their rosters to the required 53 players. Tampa Bay's decision to waive Shilo on August 24 caused a tremendous stir on social media and in traditional media. Shilo's name was trending on several platforms within hours of the news, eliciting responses that ranged from scathing condemnation to empathetic sympathy. Deeper fault lines in the public's perception of the Sanders family's transition from college football royalty to NFL reality were exposed. Although Shilo's agents immediately voiced hope that he could be claimed off waivers by another team, the timing of his release was detrimental to him in several ways. Teams throughout the league were more interested in seasoned players who could make an immediate impact than in developmental prospects with questionable behavior as roster cut deadlines drew near. Shilo had no control over his destiny because of the waiver process, which assigned released players to teams with weaker records. When the Buccaneers released Shilo, Hall of Fame wide receiver and current media personality Michael Irvin provided what may have been the most precise judgment of their approach. His analysis: Shilo's early release by Tampa Bay was actually a calculated move meant to obscure him in the shuffle of veteran releases in the hopes of re-signing him to the practice squad.
Sanders looked very, very bad. Very bad. There's no way around that against third and fourth stringers. What you talk about? 11 dropbacks, 5 sacks, just 3 completions, 4 3-and-outs in 5 series, 1 fumble recovered by a teammate. Those were the numbers, and it doesn't mean he can't play in the NFL. It means that he had a very, very bad afternoon. But it was a very bad afternoon, and because it was a very bad afternoon, one could easily argue that Kevin Stefanski was trying to save him from himself.
Irvin's appraisal offered a more upbeat view of the situation, implying that despite the incident that resulted in Shilo's release, the Buccaneers continued to respect his aggression and special teams potential. According to reports, Tampa Bay had generally had a favorable opinion of him during his time there, praising his professionalism and the promptness with which he apologized for the punch. There was also some hope for Shilo's future professional goals, given the larger NFL scene. Shilo and his brother Shadura were promptly added to the Canadian Football League's Toronto Argonauts list of potential trade targets, indicating that if NFL prospects didn't come to fruition, there might be options north of the border. For many years, the CFL was a developmental league for athletes looking to hone their craft and establish themselves with NFL scouts, offering a possible route back to American professional football. Shilo Sanders, however, was dealing with his own problems in Cleveland, albeit distinct from his brother's abrupt departure from Tampa Bay. Despite pre-draft estimates that had him going considerably earlier, the younger Sanders brother had much better hopes going into the 2025 season after being selected by the Browns in the 5th round, 144th overall. There were doubts about whether he would even make the team's final roster because of his preseason troubles, especially in the game against the Los Angeles Rams. Sports media personalities started analyzing the Sanders brothers' NFL troubles with the same level of detail usually saved for first-round draft picks or seasoned veterans going through pivotal stages in their careers. One of ESPN's most well-known pundits, Stephen A. Smith, was very critical of Shador's preseason play while defending Browns coach Kevin Stefanski against charges of sabotage.
Kevin Stefanski and the Browns are sabotaging Shilo Sanders is not only false, it's wildly disrespectful and disingenuous. So you mean to tell me, and this is not me taking shots at anybody who said it, but you mean to tell me that a guy who has dedicated his life and his career to the game and the development of players has chosen Shilo Sanders as the one to sabotage, the son of an NFL legend?
The critique went beyond performance reviews to include more general inquiries concerning the Sanders family's professional football philosophy. Former NFL quarterback turned pundit Dan Orlovsky was especially scathing in his defense of the Browns' coaching staff and in his denunciation of stories that implied organizational prejudice toward Shilo.